What is going on, everybody? I'm doing good. I hope you're doing good. This is the first official video of this channel, so thank you so much for joining in. My name's Nikita, and we're gonna be hanging out. Me and you, we're gonna go on some adventures. We're gonna see some places. We're gonna learn about some stuff. If that's something that interests you, stick around. Thank you so much for joining in. I have my main channel listed down below. Feel free to check it out if you want. Shameless self-plug. So if you're coming over from my other channel, hi, how are you? What's up? Subscribe. As the topic and the title of this video suggests, today we're going to be talking about Squirrel Hill, which is pretty much the neighborhood I grew up in after coming to the States way back when. I figured it'd be a great place to start because one, I didn't know that much history about Squirrel Hill to begin with, and it's pretty much my home, so it would be a great place to kind of kick off this channel and just, all the shebang. Follow my social media down below if you like. So Squirrel Hill, man, a lot of people here locally, here in Pittsburgh, just think of Squirrel Hill as like the Jew hub of like Pittsburgh, right? That it's just like, boom, it's just that Jewish place, right? Where all those rich Jewish people live. And to an extent that is true. Before we go out and explore this super Jewish hub of Pittsburgh, I'm going to give you some quick background, some quick history as to how it actually came to be, so when I'm showing you these places and talking about them, it'll make a lot more sense, right? But believe it or not, Squirrel Hill is actually the largest and most populous Pittsburgh neighborhood, right? That's crazy because you don't really think of it. A lot of people just think Squirrel Hill is just Forbes and Murray, but there's a lot to Squirrel Hill. I'm going to put a map of it right here, right? Believe it or not, there's about 26,000 plus people living in Squirrel Hill, right? In about a 3.89 mile radius, which is kind of small if you think about it. But that's a lot of people for that kind of location, right? The whole neighborhood is pretty much propped on a hill rather than in a valley. So that's really important for the history that comes with it. It's legitimately on a hill. So like the name kind of makes sense as to why it's called Squirrel Hill, but we'll get to that in just one second. So the first inhabitants of Squirrel Hill were Native Americans, right? They were just like scavenging, foraging, having their tribes and shit, doing their fucking totem poles, all that good stuff, right? They used the Squirrel Hill area as like hunting grounds because there's a lot of game, there's a lot of deer, there's a lot of like fucking game, Specifically, there was an abundance of squirrels, right? There were so many squirrels that the Native Americans were like, you know what? Squirrel Hill, that's the name of this place because there's so many fucking squirrels. In the 1700s, French and British trappers roamed Squirrel Hill, right? They were in there, coming in, coming out. So Squirrel Hill wasn't actually inhabited and settled in by Europeans until after the French and Indian War. So that's like a little bit later. So let's jump into the actual neighborhood. Let's go check it out. Learn about it real live time, man. Now that we're outside, it's a beautiful day. It's nice and early in the afternoon. We have a long day of just getting to know Squirrel Hill ahead of us. We're gonna start with this here log cabin, right? It's called the Martin Log Cabin. It is one of two that still remain in Squirrel Hill. The other one being the Neal Log Cabin. The first log house, right, in Squirrel Hill was believed to be built by Colonel James Byrd in 9 Mile Run Valley when he was stationed down at Fort Pitt in the 1760s. He called that house Somerset. That house is actually no longer standing. It was destroyed or demolished, I'm not exactly sure, but it doesn't exist anymore. But two other log houses from the 1760s still remain standing, and this and the Neal cabin, which we'll go to next, is one of them. Those are the two. For this one, just enjoy the montage. We're gonna take a good circle around it so you can see what it looks like, and yeah, enjoy. And then we're gonna be off to the Neal log cabin right up the hill, so see you there. Now we're gonna go check out the second log house here in Shenley Park. It's gonna be a trek because it's kind of far away, so I'm gonna have to jog there or run there or do something there, but it's far away, so I'll see you there. As a personal side note, right there, Shenley Park ice rink. There used to be a different place that people used to go ice skating here in Squirrel Hill, but we'll get to that. But I used to play hockey here when I was a really little kid. Used to come here on like school field trips and stuff. Not really a sight to see, but since it's not even open right now, but nonetheless, cool place to visit in Squirrel Hill. Another kind of cool side stop along the way, as you can see, that right there is the city of Pittsburgh. And right here, whenever the sun sets, is literally the best place to be. If you're with somebody or you just want to have a nice romantic sunset, this is the place to go. It's not sunset yet, it's kind of early day, so I can't really show you that, but if I'm still around here when the sun goes down, I'll definitely record it. This is like Shenley Park's kind of like hub, I guess, to a degree, because the ice rink is right here, the soccer field is literally right there, and there's this hill. People play like frisbee golf out here, they do all kinds of weird shit. You fly your kite here in the summer or when it's windy, but most importantly, in the winter, you slide down this hill, or sled down this hill, because it gets really snowy up in these parts. That's that. Let's keep going to our second log cabin. Shenley Park Oval, which is used for running, track, leisure, tennis, and soccer. It was built about 10 years ago, but it's the place to be, man. It's where I do my jogging. So as I walk through it, I'll let you see what it looks like. Check it out. We're finally here at the second log house. This one's called the Neil Log House. Now, it's in pretty bad shape, so it's barricaded by a fence, so we can't really get in there and close. But you can see kind of that the door is a little bit open and stuff. And yeah, let's talk about it real quick. This log house was built in 1765, right? That's a long ass time ago. It's considered the oldest home in Pittsburgh because the two other oldest buildings in Pittsburgh are actually not homes. So this is the oldest home in Pittsburgh. So it was built by the Neil family, right? Who owned about 262 acres of land, what is now Shenley Park. This is actually, we're actually on kind of like a golf course. John Neil, who built the cabin, he came here from Ireland like 1736, right? He had a family here, all that kind of stuff. He lived in the house, and the house went through generations of people until it landed in the hands of Colonel James O'Hara, right? Who left the property and all the land pretty much to Mary Shenley, who ended up donating Shenley Park as a whole back to the city, which I'll talk about more when I talk about Shenley Park as a whole. But that's kind of the history of this house. We're gonna head down to the trails where I have a little bit of a hidden gem waiting for you guys. So come on, let's go. Focus, boom. We're at the trails. Believe it or not, in the 1760s, Squirrel Hill did not have an abundance of trails. And that's kind of crazy because some people might come to Squirrel Hill because of the abundance of trails, because we have so many of them over here. Some of these trails ran along the very famous roads like Shady, Hazelwood Avenues, Forbes Avenue. Those trails are still there, but now we have Panther Hollow Trail, we have the Lower Panther Hollow Trail, which is where I'm taking you today for a very specific reason, and you'll see shortly. We're gonna be going down Lower Panther Hollow Trail. It's one of the first trails I've discovered as a kid. Let's keep it going. Someone might argue me that Panther Hollow is part of Oakland. Technically, it's in Shenley Park, and Shenley Park goes into Oakland, so both people are right. It's in Squirrel Hill and it's in Oakland. It's a happy medium. Sometimes you can see deer just coming down and chilling with them. I'm crazy about the streams over here, man. They're like the best. Like, do you hear that water? The noise of the spring. Like, it's so refreshing and freeing, and it's just like, it's really soothing and relaxing. made it to the lake. So let's do some lake montage and then learn a little bit about the history of this place. Cue it. This place. It's pretty cool, isn't it? It's a man-made lake. So officially it was constructed between roughly 1907 and 1909, so a long ass time ago. Like Titanic didn't even sail yet. And it was roughly around the same time that the Panther Hollow Bridge and other parts of Panther Hollow were constructed as well. So they all kind of happened around the same time. The lake had a boathouse roughly over there in that area. I'll probably insert some pictures right here of what it used to look like. All the way up until the late 70s actually. It was used as an ice rink in the winter and as a boathouse in the summer. People would like rent their boats and paddle and stuff along the lake, and in the winter it was used as an ice skating rink. It was actually like the hub, so people from like Chatham or like Pitt and like other areas would come and like chill here, which is really neat because now it doesn't exist. Over time the boathouse was heavily neglected and just the whole area was heavily neglected, and eventually the boathouse was torn down in 1979 and the lake kind of gradually just went out of use and nobody used it anymore. All this walking and bullshit has gotten me real tired, so let's head over to my favorite fucking coffee place in Squirrel Hill and take a coffee break. Got my coffee. It's not labeled, but commonplace coffee is literally the best coffee. I'm drinking some Americano action, only small because I've already had a lot of coffee today. Obviously, as Pittsburgh grew and prospered in the mid 1800s, you know, wealthy city businessmen began buying up land, like the farmland, because initially Squirrel Hill was just a farm, essentially farmland, and they built vast country estates on the property. At the time, Squirrel Hill was part of Peebles Township, which was just like a large municipality and east of Pittsburgh. After a little bit, Pittsburgh annexed Peebles Township, I think in 1868. So the large estates began to be subdivided into smaller but still substantial residential lots. Wealthy industrialists, wealthy businessmen still built like mansions, many in the northern part of Squirrel Hill. Squirrel Hill began to be occupied by these like wealthier people, and the majority of these mansions, man, they're still there. For example, the Barry Mansion on Woodland Road was actually the first home of Chatham University, which is crazy because that's an all-chick school. Well, not anymore, but it was for a little bit. And it was founded in 1869. So roughly around this time. Let's go show you guys a little bit of what the actual city part of Squirrel Hill looks like and give you a little bit of a background on that. So let's jump right into it. Hey, let's push it down. Boom. There you go. How you guys doing? The reason I'm sitting on the steps in front of this big ass church is because this big ass church is first of all a church, not a synagogue, which is crazy because this is a Jew neighborhood, right? I'm kidding. There's a bunch of churches here, there's a bunch of synagogues here, there's a bunch of faiths here. Major change occurred in 1893 with the coming of the electric trolley, right? So Pittsburgh's known for having trolleys back in the day, and on Forbes Avenue, they actually made a trolley. Why is that huge? For obvious reasons. One, transportation, right? So people are coming into Squirrel Hill more. There's more people coming in. There's more businesses coming in. There's more employment opportunities in Squirrel Hill. So people are building stores, businesses here. So the business district is coming to Squirrel Hill. That's huge. That means more people are moving into Squirrel Hill. More residential people, not so much the rich people, right? And with that, people bring their faiths. So they build their synagogues and they build their churches. So the name of this church is the Sixth Presbyterian Church, and ground was broken on it in 1902 because the neighborhood started to grow because of all the new businesses and the new people moving in, and so did the church. This church had 1,128 members when it celebrated its 100th anniversary in 1950. Now that's pretty good for church, you know what I'm saying? What's crazy to think is that something that looks like this now, with the Manor Theater right there, used to look like this now. Used to look like this back then. Isn't that insane? With all this stuff happening in Pittsburgh, right? All these people coming and all this business and all this stuff coming into Squirrel Hill, right? It was still fairly rural, right? And in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, these swaths of pretty much rural land were made permanent by donations of 2 huge tracts of forested land. Those were Schenley Park and Frick Park. Let's head on over there and check out Schenley Park, and we'll check out Frick Park. All right, let's go. There we go. What's going on, guys? We're back in Schenley Park. We were here just a little bit ago, but now here we are, we're back, right? Look at this view, man. See, that's what I'm talking about right there. Look at that view, man. Look at it. It's great. It's absolutely insane being out here. It's like the best fucking surreal thing. But we're here to talk about Schenley Park, because that's where I am. I'm in Schenley Park. So the main thing to know is that it was donated to the city in 1889 by Mary Schenley, right? She was the one that inherited the park. Her and Edward Bigelow worked out a deal, basically, where if they kept the park as it was, as long as it was named after the Schenley name, which it was, then the city could have it. And Edward Bigelow and his lawyer and shit, and Mary, they talked it out, and they were like, yeah, you know what, that's cool beans, you know what I mean? And they struck up that deal, and then they bought another, I believe, 120 acres or so the park expanded even more. It's a great place to just like hang out, go to the trails, watch the sunset, because the view of the city is insane from this hill. And there's a bunch of stuff around here, like, but now we're gonna go to Frick Park, which is, I think, my favorite park in the Pittsburgh area. So let's head over there. I don't want to leave this view, but we kind of have to, so we'll see you there. Let's go. Now we're officially in Frick Park. Now, personally, this is my favorite park. I learned to ride my bike here. I fell off my bike here. I used to go sledding here. I used to just run around the playground here. This is just personally my favorite park. And it's pretty massive too, with all its trails and stuff. I'm gonna put a picture of it right here, of Frick Park specifically, so you can see how big it actually is. Let's have a sit down and talk about this amazing park. Obviously it's called Frick Park for a reason, because it's titled after Henry Clay Frick, who was actually Andrew Carnegie's most prominent executive, right? And he died in 1919, before the park was even built. But he bequeathed about 151 acres of land, which is mainly undeveloped wilderness, right, to the city of Pittsburgh for a park. And that's what happened. They built a park. And over the years, more and more parcels of land were added to the park to make it roughly 600 acres of land. And to this day, the majority of the park actually remains in its natural state. Amazing place to be. Like, look at this open ass field behind me. Look how big this field is. It's massive, man. And the trails, I think, are a lot prettier and more beautiful than the ones in Schenley Park. That's just my opinion. It's just like, people bring their dogs here. People come here to relax, tan, just play fucking soccer, whatever you want, man. It's the perfect park to go. And there's a bunch of trails that you can go on your dirt bike, you can walk. That's pretty much Frick Park. Now enjoy this little bit of history about Squirrel Hill from the mid-1900s all the way up to present day. I'm gonna go for a jog and I'll see you after.
The population of Squirrel Hill increased rapidly in the 1920s, when development of the automobile allowed people to move around more freely, and the construction of the Boulevard of Allies linked Squirrel Hill to downtown Pittsburgh. This increase in population consisted mainly of Eastern European Jews moving to Central and South Squirrel Hill from Oakland and the Hill District. So that's why Squirrel Hill is so known for its Jewish population. By the 1930s, most of the available land in Squirrel Hill was completely filled. And because of this influx, Squirrel Hill became the center of Jewish culture in the city, with kosher butcher shops, delicatessens, Jewish restaurants, bookstores, and designer boutiques lining the business district of Forbes and Murray Avenues. In 1943, the Jewish community group known as the Irene Kaufman Settlement, based in the Hill District, made its entry into the neighborhood with Squirrel Hill Boys Club on Forward Avenue. The present-day Jewish Community Center, an organization descended from a merger of the Irene Kaufman Center with the Young Men and Women's Hebrew Association, now occupies two large modern buildings near the top of Forbes and Murray, so basically the JCC. Squirrel Hill to this day still remains the focal point of Jewish life in Pittsburgh.